Good afternoon. Today we're talking about post-COVID, aka sometimes called long hauler syndrome. What we're trying to do, obviously, in medicine is to think upstream. What are the most common other complaints besides the COVID scenario that we can look at and examine? So let's take the post-COVID, aka long haulers syndromes. The most common complaint that we see or that I hear is this crushing fatigue, the type of fatigue that you have to go lay down. After 20, 30 minutes, you may feel a little bit better. The crushing fatigue can be quite disabling, and that can also be very discouraging. As we go through this talk, I'll give you some ideas to deal with it. Difficulty concentrating. A lot of patients that we see are post-COVID, they have difficulties focusing, difficulties concentrating. So simplistic tasks become more difficult, AKA, I've heard, where did I park my car, as to what grocery store do I need to go to, what items do I need to pick up. These items seem to be more problematic than they used to be for patients, especially if they're bringing them up. The other item is GI disturbances. So for example, most commonly would be irritable bowel syndrome. The part of the irritable bowel syndrome, whether it be constipation or diarrhea, it seems to be more leaning on the constipation and diarrhea evenly. Often, one thing we do hear a little bit more is on the issue of diarrhea. Resetting your flora that you can get either OTC or contact us can be helpful to deal with the diarrheal component. Anxiety. Anxiety is a difficult issue to work within. Patients who have had anxiety seem to find that sometimes the post-COVID syndrome seems to increase the anxiety reactions, AKA the difficulty with hearing loud sounds, lights, etc. The anxiety components, things that used to contribute to a panic attack, can become more accentuated. This is usually due to some of the neurological disturbances that COVID has. Things to do, things to be aware of, things that you can kind of rule out. Is this post-COVID, or is this another metabolic or medical issue? Things you want to do are get your laboratory serologies, rule out anemia, rule out Epstein-Barr virus or cytomegaloviruses, because these can all contribute. And you may have not had them prior, but post-COVID, COVID set up a very good opportunity for some of these secondary viral infections to come. Fungal infections such as coccidioidomycosis, aka valley fever. Some of these items seem to compound when we're immune compromised. Also look for autoimmune diseases. Did you have a genetic predisposition towards an autoimmune disease and secondarily got COVID, and now that autoimmune disease, whether it be rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, seems to have reared its persnickety head. So look for these items. Laboratory serologies are great to determine, and also some online quizzes can be helpful. The other items to kind of look for is what's the psychological, aka the psychosomatic portion that we deal with COVID. So psychological and what we call more or less the psychosocial seems to be based on the overwhelming feeling of I've got this to do, I have that to do, I don't feel well, and it all develops into kind of what we call a perfect storm. Things that can be helpful are journaling. Start journaling and set up what we call cognitive patterns. If you journal, run a calendar specifically somewhat what your day entitles. the overwhelming feeling and some of the neurological complications of COVID can be easier to deal with. Remember that the old analogy, which works really well, is with the psychological, and all I have to say is adjust yourself at that time. If you find yourself going through that spiral, stop, examine, and try to continue and perhaps downplay or look for ways to solve what would seem at that point unresolvable. At the end of the day, there's an exercise that would be really helpful, especially when you're not feeling well and you're dealing with COVID, and that would be three good things. Look for those three good things in the day, write them down. The tactile skill of actually handwriting can be very beneficial and very therapeutic. Nutrition. I get often asked what would be the best diet to utilize. Mostly if you're dealing with a autoimmune, COVID, aka a viral, any other types of diseases, often do very well with what's called an anti-inflammatory diet. Many are out there. Choose and pick the type that would work best with your lifestyle and best with your economics. Get your vitamin D level checked. Vitamin D is important in many, many aspects, but one of them that's important is the immune system. Remember with vitamin D, it's not the more the merrier. Have your level monitored. Too high of a level can upset calcium, phosphorus, and other items. So remember, not more is better, but get to a therapeutic level and get to monitor that, just have that checked. Sleep, set up a sleep hygiene system. Sleep is critical and you need to have a schedule, i.e. going to bed at X time, waking up at X time. Try to make these more of a 10 to 6 routine or 9 to 5. Try to get your 8 to 9 hours. However, set up a schedule, set up a routine. Without a routine, that can feed the anxiety component. Nutrition, IV nutrition. Nutritional IVs can be very beneficial. They put in some of the micronutrients that we're unable to absorb. Therapies to look at would be Myers therapeutics, MEYERS. That can be quite a beneficial intravenous solution. Vitamin B injections. All the vitamin Bs mixed can help reduce stress, can help reduce anxiety. And then don't forget your oral therapeutics, your essential fatty acids, your multivitamins, your vitamin B complex by mouth. All these can be quite successful in working through the COVID scenario. Use a multi-systemic approach to this, i.e. the psychological, the dietary, and then obviously the physical components. The ways to get the physical components dialed in are the more knowledge you have, the better. That's one. Psychological, if you need extra support, those mechanisms are out there in the community. Nutritional is, I always like to say, the easier for you to do and the more wholesome, the least amount of chemical, the best way to deal with the nutritional component of COVID. Look more towards the anti-inflammatory, as we just said a few minutes ago. If you need any other help or assistance, please feel free to email our office and we'll do our best to work you through this difficult, challenging time.